Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kendra Jason. I'm a sociologist and workplace equity consultant, and I will bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. On this podcast, I challenge you to think about work. Why? Because in America, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work? And I mean all types of work: women's work, essential work, retirement, being your own boss, how to handle your boss, and so much more. Please subscribe and share the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. You can learn more about my consultancy that supports this podcast at work4changellc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 39. I am so excited because today we have a very special episode of our podcast. These are my happy hour crew. Happy hour crew is my group of friends who actually helped me conceive of Work for Change. And so today we're going to tell our story because Work for Change is as much as their story as it is mine. Okay, so everybody knows Chris. That's my right hand, always with me.
Glad to be back.
Then we have Jocelyn Britton.
Hi, everyone.
Gretchen Thompson.
Hello.
Sarah Eplin. And Brandy Farrar.
Hello.
Now, we all met in graduate school at NC State a few years ago, maybe about 20, but who's counting? And we had a really unique bond because each and every one of us had a pregnancy, had a child or children while in graduate school, which was not a typical thing. Any of you who are academics, you know, graduate students are often discouraged from having any type of family, let alone a new one, right? So anyway, that was our bonding mechanism, for lack of a better word. And once we got grown and got our big jobs and got a little money in our pocket, you know, we decided to meet up once a year to have a reunion, because actually, as close as we were, we didn't really talk to each other, each of us, much during the year. I think I talked to Jocelyn maybe 3 times a year on average, right? And so what we would do is we would meet up at one of our home states and have a happy hour weekend, a girls' weekend, and it was just a bunch of fun. So anyway, out of these happy hour vacations, we started talking about, you know, starting not necessarily a business. We would say maybe starting a blog or starting a project or just starting something that wasn't academic, that could help us like express our creative side and work together and be fun and all of the things, right? Then COVID happened, right? And that always changes the course. So COVID happened, and what we started to do, I'm not sure whose idea it was, but every Friday at 5 o'clock, Gretchen, we would help each other through the pandemic. We would, every Friday at 5 o'clock, we would, you know, laugh and cry and share stories and try to figure out our new life. And then about midway through 2020, a little early, I sent out an email and I said, hey, we've been toying with this idea of starting a business, and maybe now's the time. I didn't say it that way. I was like, now's the time. Let's get going. And I'll tell you how it went in short. From my recollection, remember, everything is going to be my perspective here. So y'all have an opportunity to finally correct me if it's wrong. So I sent the email out and all 6 of us were like on board. This is awesome. This is what we're going to do. It's cool. So we got into the business phase and the business planning of it. And then Jocelyn and Sarah were sort of like, you know what? This is not my lane. It's not my thing. I support you fully, but this is not what I want to do right now. So they said, cool. So that left Chris, Brandy, Gretchen, and myself, which is where the original 4 in Work for Change came from. So we built a whole business model around the strengths that each of the 4 of us had. So anyway, fast forward a few months, Gretchen and Brandy find out through their employers that it is actually a conflict of interest if they go on their own consulting venture. So what did they say? Kendra and Chris, we love you very much, but we are not leaving our full-time jobs, right? Who can blame them, right? So then that left Chris and I. We were like, oh man, what do we do? It was a lot of brainstorming and kind of figuring things out. And then we finally just said, hey, you know what? Let's just start small. Start with what Chris and Kendra have and bring that to the table and see where it goes. And we'll just grow from there, right? And hence on January 15th, 2021, Work for Change was launched, right? And we just celebrated one full year in January, had a banquet, which you've probably seen in social media. And so with all of that being said, I finally actually get to talk to my friends because I haven't asked them this directly. What has it been like for you to watch Chris and I take on this venture over the year from afar? Because you've been our cheerleaders, but you've also been at a distance. So Jocelyn, why don't you start us off?
So I think that one of the things that I saw early on was just sort of the synergy that was happening between you and Chris as we met every Friday, and you two just had like a glow and you were so excited. And the one thing I remember both of you saying early on was, we get up so early in the morning to start working on this and we love it because it's fun and it doesn't feel like work. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm not a morning person, like really? And then the next week you two just got the excitement and the passion for it just kept growing. And it didn't matter what time of the morning or the evening, the hours that you needed to put in.
Yeah.
This was clearly like fueling something for the both of you. And it was just so exciting to see that happening for the both of you.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. I love that.
That's our 7 a.m. dates. So Chris and I met at 7 a.m. Monday through Friday for at least 6 months.
At least we started our day looking, you were the first person I looked at and spoke to, and it's magical.
Yeah, the commitment was so impressive from the beginning.
What about you, Sarah?
Well, for me, it was like you two both manifested together these separate visions that you had for yourselves.
Oh, yeah.
You were a lot younger. So in your own ways, you both were like, this academic professor job is like awesome. And this is what I want. But also there's something else out there for me. And you always had a clear path. Like, I want to help work be better somehow. Like you didn't back then, like 20 years ago, didn't have a real clear articulation of what that was like. And, but you knew that's what you wanted to do. And Chris, I remember you talking about wanting to make documentary films and always being really into using, visual sociology to make meaning and tell stories. And so for me, when I saw, like Jocelyn said, the synergy between the two of you, it was like this manifestation of these things that you had always wanted to do become real. And it was just like awe-inspiring, frankly. It was really cool. It is really cool to watch. To do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. Who's next?
Thank me according to the chat. So, I mean, I'll say it's probably the most fun I've had, like watching close friends of mine, like do the thing, like do what it is they want to do. I mean, I think we're all pretty lucky that we have like circles of very accomplished friends. Who do really well. And I feel super fortunate that I'm among a lot of women who are like, I'm trying not to use an expletive here, who are like boss women, right? So, and you take charge and you do things. And watching you and Chris, I mean, not only launch your business, but when you'll have a contract, like within a week, it was something ridiculous. Like you were like, launch my business, got a contract. And then like 2 weeks later, you're like, and I'm international, so get some of that. I mean, it was just like one thing after another. And it was just fun. It was really fun. It was so fun talking to y'all. And in some respects, I feel really fortunate that it happened during the pandemic because
Yeah.
we were having those regular happy hours. So like we got a front row seat in everything that you all were doing. So it was like you and Chris took work for change from a vision into reality during a pandemic when we were all at home, and you did it with such a like impressive speed and clarity during a time when things were stupid turbulent and
Yeah.
confusing. And so it was like this one laser of just, I don't know, it was really it for me, it was just um it was reassuring, it was exciting, it was fun, it was a lot of things, but all of them good. So I'm still like, bravo. But anyway,
The
yeah, no, it was
laser, I
really
love
awesome.
that. I love the idea of the laser. Kendra's the laser.
Yeah,
I just jumped on her back and said, "Take me with you, laser."
right.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think I would say a similar thing where it was just really motivating and energizing because I think Kendra, like you talked about sending that email out and was like, we're going to do this. I mean, it was not just that email. It was like, I mean, there were things on my calendar. I had materials. There was a Google Drive with action items. And I'm like, okay, we're doing it, because, you always talk about like, I'm like process implementation, like how are we going to get this done? Like big ideas are great, but like, how do we execute on that? And so I think that was like, I'm like, oh, she's serious about this. Cause it was like very much from that moment of you setting your intention, like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
It was very strategic, very thought through, very thoughtful. And I loved it. It was very much like rallying the troops. And it was just like really exciting to like just jump in there with you and be like, okay, let me, I can review things, I can draft things, I can, so it was, it was really great.
Yeah, I forgot I had created Google folders and calendar invites and
You had
diagrams.
Yeah, you had like a plan before.
Yeah.
Yeah, even our first meetings. It was awesome.
we
And
would
resources, like you were looking at like small business resources and
Yeah.
all of it, all the things.
we would have talked about it forever, years and years, and if Kendra didn't
Yeah.
actually do it, because we would talk about it on our trips. Like it would start after like our first glass of wine. It would start with like we should publish something together, and then an hour later we should do a vlog. We should totally do a vlog. Then at the end of the night, like we should move in together and make like a whole thing. It was just got bigger and bigger. But then
Focus.
made it real. Like you had the vision, you really did, and you put it into practice, and it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about timing. And of course, COVID-19 just shifted so many gears for everyone. But I was also going through a transition. Chris was going through a different type of transition. I was going through a promotion at work, and felt really secure in my job and in my capabilities. And one of my colleagues who has seniority over me really planted some seeds of doubt, and it just really made me question, on top of the whole like COVID, what is my purpose? Why am I here? It really made me want to pursue what's real. I mean, Gretchen, I think you make such a good point that we are all extremely accomplished women in our own right, however, and I had reached the pinnacle of my last accomplishment. I knew I was getting tenure, or at least on the way. And so I needed another goal. I needed something else. And it's not just about goal attainment. It's about, doing what I really want to do while I'm here. And I think that all the elements came together. And then, oh my God, Chris Maycomber, who everybody thinks we're totally dating.
We wouldn't blame you if you were. We know you're not, but we wouldn't blame you if you were. Either one of you, honestly.
I always say it's like I don't know what Work for Change would be without Chris's everything. I can't just say support. I can't just say vision. I can't just say digital storytelling. It's just like the whole package. Yeah, it's like it's the everything of it. And so yeah, so I just always want to give Chris kudos for sticking with me and not thinking I'm crazy.
No, I thought it was brilliant. I really did. And, we share a brain oftentimes. We're like on the same page, but we have we have enough differences that it clicks in the way that it needs to run a business, right? Because if you have two people who are so similar, like two of me, we never would have got launched. It would have been in like circles, or two of you would be,
Yeah,
I'm sure, very successful in its own, in its own way. But we have our own dynamic, right? Like someone
yeah.
used the word synergy. I think Jocelyn did, and that helps, helps it flourish, I think. So it's been awesome to be a part of.
So I wanted to know if you all had any questions for me and Chris, like if anything that you've been wondering from afar, and it doesn't matter what it is, this is an open format, but is anything you've been wondering or curious about?
Well, Kendra, you mentioned kind of the dropping off of the crew along the way. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious what that was like for you, given that this was something that, we had talked a lot about as, a group of friends.
Yeah, so very good question. So when Sarah and Jocelyn dropped off, it was like, oh, but I like totally understood because Jocelyn was collecting data. Sarah has an incredible teaching responsibility, and I totally understood. So I was like, yeah, I got my 4, especially because you and Gretchen especially are so organizational minded. So it went right along with Work for Change. But I will admit, when you two kind of dropped off like at the same time, I was like, oh shoot, what can we do? I wasn't, of course you know this, I wasn't like mad or anything. I was just like, well, what does this look like now? Because it really felt like an arm got cut off. But then it was, so I can't remember, Chris, like the chronological order of this, but we met with, so one of the I say the keys to success of Work for Change is that I actually hired a consultant. I hired a communication specialist, humanity collective, communications collective, and their team helped me and Chris like fill in the blanks. We told them what happened with the 4 and the 2, and they were just like, oh, you have so much substance here. Like they loved working with us, and they were just like, oh, you can do this and you can do this, and this is your mission statement, and those things. So actually having someone, a third person who's not in the group, kind of step in and say like, you and Chris are awesome. Like, do y'all realize how awesome y'all are? And then we were just like, we are pretty awesome. Let's see where this goes. So that's the answer to that. It was a little scary because it was just like so much preparation and then a dramatic shift. But I wonder how far Chris and I would have gotten in the planning without the 6, then the 4 brains. Because the 6 and 4 brains got us so far. I mean, you literally got us to like the last leg of the relay, and then it was like, oh, now we just have to like figure out what this looks like. We had all the substance, and I think that's what made it easy.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm curious to know, so one of the things that I think is so great about this group is that it's an example of women supporting each other. And hopefully, a lot of listeners have experienced that, being supported by women, but I think all too often our society sets us up to compete with one another, to maybe feel jealousy, instead of supporting one another. And I think that we all truly feel so happy for you. And so what are some things that you all got out of the happy hours, or ways in which you feel like the community of us has like sustained you and supported you, as especially through this past year, as you've been like just, achieving all this success and really pushing yourselves and working hard?
Actually, Chris, do you want to go first? Because I want to share the time with you.
Sure. I mean, I can't imagine like my life without women, like just emotionally, like psychologically supporting me. So having that, not that I take it for granted, but like it is how I navigate the world, is like bumping into awesome women and seeking them out and craving that. So having you all from graduate school and then seeing what we've done in our lives after, and then COVID came and I was in, talk about turbulent to that point in my life where it was like a lot of transitions. And this, like my happy hour was my anchor
Oh
for like
yeah.
every Friday. I knew I could see these six, rectangles and we could talk to each other and process what was going on. And as we launched Work for Change, there has never been a comment or a moment of, what are y'all thinking? Like, how are you going to do this? You work a lot. You already have a full-time job. Like, nobody said anything but go get it. Do
Yeah.
what you need to do. We're here 1,000%. We're here to soundboard. Like that positive, like encouragement and just unabashed enthusiasm and support definitely helped fuel me. I mean, without a doubt, because it's just like, positive energy breeds positive energy. So I always felt that, you all, that we could come to you with, stressors or celebrations and you were there for it. So thank you for being our community.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have. I definitely would have. I would not have had anyone to send the email to. and, I, and I really don't think. I mean, we can. I can play the game of hypotheticals, but I don't see where the motivation would have been to start a new venture this big, because my career is set. I mean, we have all of us are in some pretty stable career paths. Right. And so, we worked hard to get there. And there's a comfort in that. And I just had a plan, especially when I started to go tenure track and it was just so narrow focus on just getting tenure. I didn't think outside of the box at all. And so having those happy hours, and then again with COVID and with your support, it just made it all come together very easily. It almost is as easy as it seems. Like it really, I don't want to undermine anybody who has really tough experiences starting your own business. I talk about that all the time. And not to say it doesn't come with its challenges. One huge advantage I have is I do have a Chris, meaning a person that I can share my ideas with and fall back on, or if my internet crashes or if I can't make a meeting, she just slides right in. And I have that. A lot of people don't. And so that's a part of the support too. Yeah.
I want Jocelyn kind of asked the question I was thinking in a way. And I mean, because I feel like we have created a community, or, a family of choice among us these past several years. But I feel like a really important piece of that, and I'm hoping you and Chris can maybe talk about it, or really just anybody, is the common analysis that we bring to how we reflect on our personal and professional lives. So we're all sociologists. I mean, I don't know if, that hasn't been necessarily announced as part of this podcast, but we all have PhDs in sociology from the same program. We went to grad school together. But that common analysis, I feel like, is just fundamental to the way in which we support each other. And I don't want to answer my own questions, so I'm just going to put it out there and just say, like, how has that worked for you? Have you found that to be a thing or useful too?
So I'm going to talk about the personal, and I'm going to tip it to Chris and maybe talk about maybe the business angle or wherever you want to take it. So one thing that I love that I get from you women is the reinforcement of boundaries and wellness and self-care. And so when you talk about like analysis, I understand completely what you're saying, but a part of the analysis is my own self-analysis of my life and how I want it to operate and feel like and look like, and not conforming to expectations. So to an example, earlier we were talking about the 5 o'clock happy hour. My family knew that 5 o'clock on Fridays, I am off limits for at least an hour, and my family started to, once they kind of got that I was serious about my 5 o'clock happy hour, they started prepping it for me. Did you eat? Did you got your drink? And of course, again, I do have some social support. I don't have a very young child, so I do have some things that worked in my favor that makes that easier. But that whole like, really taking what we appreciate about what sociology has told us about the world and how we want to change it and operate in it and model it. I try to do that. I try to do it 100% in my life. And the older that I get, the more bold I get in it, right? And unapologetic that I get in it. And so I think each of you do that as well. And I love how we share our challenges with that and our compromises and our negotiations with it. But we are always here to say, well, Gretchen would say a curse word and to say, do you, right? So when I think about your question, that actually, when I think about analysis, that's the way I think about it. Chris, you may think about it same or different.
Yeah, well, I think about like as sociologists, how the work that we do at Work for Change is unique because we're social scientists. Like,
Oh,
there
yeah.
are a lot of people in the equity and the workplace game right now, but they're not social analysts. They might be consultants and they might be facilitators, but they don't necessarily have training in, rigorous training in social science. They're not researchers necessarily.
Mhm.
And Kendra and I are both qualitative researchers, so we value rich qualitative data and story, like human stories. So I think what we do is we put the sort of, human face on running a business. And what that means is, we've talked about certain partnerships that won't work for us because we have
Yeah.
our, moral compass or sociological compass of, if you're not really in it to make, grassroots change, if you're just looking to check a box, you're not going to work. Like we have our own sort of guidelines that are certainly been informed by sociology. And I think in terms of the digital storytelling work that I do, it's helping clients tell their change story. Like as we're working with them, as we're consulting with them, whether it's a 6-month contract or an 18-month contract or 12-month, what I say to them is there's a change story that's unfolding, like where you're starting now, what you would like to accomplish as a company. And as we do our learning series with you, we're going to help capture and document that process. And all along, I'm asking sociological questions
Mhm.
like, how does this all fit together? What are the challenges you face? How does what your workers experience? How is that impacted by the structure of your organization? How are decisions made? Who gets to make them? How and why? And those kinds of questions. So even though I'm telling a digital story, it might seem like just like a human story. It is constructed just like a research project with
Yeah.
it's a very exciting to me form of qualitative data. I do interviews with people, and to me, I'm collecting data and helping tell that story. So I don't see, yeah, I definitely see my work as doing applied sociology, public sociology, all of those things, and that's the work I've always wanted to do that Sarah talked about. Is like Chris always kind of side-eyed getting out there, right? Because we think of the academia as kind of insulated, and I've always had this sort of like scratch I needed to itch to take sociology to the streets, so to speak, or take it to the public. So I get to do that now with Work for Change.
I want to say two quick things that Chris made me think of. One, I love the moment when a client figures out that we are not just equity consultants. I remember, for example, we get hired a lot for racial equity work right now. It's just the climate, and there's a lot of funding for it. So that's sort of our bread and butter right now. Even though we're saying like we're workplace equity, we never say we're racial equity or gender equity. We're workplace equity consultancy. So we go in and we do all the things, all the assessments, and in the process, we bring out all of these things about communication and policy and structure and power dynamics and organizational relationships and all of the things, right? And I remember one client, we had such a good session. We did a site visit and we had such a good session with all of her coworkers. And at the end, she was like, I get it now. Your workplace. It was like, whew. It's not just that you're about Black people and how we treat Black people. It's about the labor process. And I was like, yes, finally. You get it.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening, and I'll just be honest, what our clients have to reckon with is that Chris and I are going to bring to the table a lot more than you expected us to have you wrestle with and get to the bottom of, in order to get to the racial equity or whatever that specific thing that you hired us on. You may have hired us about racial equity, but we're going to talk about the labor process, which is different. The other thing, just really quickly I remember I went to a professional conference, a regional sociology conference, and so many colleagues, because I post my stuff on social media, 100% work for change. And my colleagues through social media, they, may like something once here or there. When I went to the conference and saw people in person, they were like, how do you do it? Like, you are so brave. I want to do that. I mean, they were literally like, not pressing me in the corner, but they wanted these like quiet, intimate moments to be like, how do you do it so I can do it? Or telling me like, you were so brave for doing that because I can see myself doing it, but I don't know how to do it. And it's just really interesting how I'm just like going about my business, literally minding my own business and, sharing the journey through advertising essentially, and how it makes people curious. And it makes people question, which I love, who they are and what they want to be, and if they can operate outside of the capacity in which they are. So I just thought, I didn't expect that. And I say that to say that so many of us are hesitant to start our own businesses because what we think our coworkers will say or things of that nature, but you will always be surprised at where your support comes from.
When you use the word brave, it made me think about some of the other things that I've been thinking about this whole conversation and how I think we help to make each other brave, and we have been for a long time. Think about all the challenges that we have willingly sought out and taken on. And then all those other things that we also have had to endure, like family stuff and, the things that maybe we didn't choose to have to endure, but we had to endure them anyway.
Yeah.
But also those other things that we had to endure, like graduate school, dissertations, and trying to figure out how to be moms with, while also writing dissertations and going through grad school and all of those things. And every time we came together and we were like, I got you, like in some way, you do this, keep going. Like whatever kind of support that we were able to provide for each other has gotten us through enormous things, which doesn't surprise me that the very first gathering at the lake, also, we were like, we can totally do a race this weekend on top of just hanging out.
Right, we did to support Kendra. That's why we did that. We didn't plan this yearly thing.
So I have to give a little bit of backdrop just for the audience, just really quickly.
Yeah.
So this was our first reunion. We decided to meet local. No, we had the date. And then I said, oh shoot, on this day, I'm going to run a half marathon. I had been planning the whole year to build up to a half marathon for a personal challenge. And I said, so, I'll go run and y'all can stay at the cabin and that'll be cool. And they were like, we'll run it with you. Now they didn't run a half marathon because they had smaller segments that you can run. But they literally registered for the event, and all 6 of us ran a city race. And so that's what Sierra's talking about. Like, let's just run a race.
Sarah is the one who said maybe we should go there for Kendra and be there so when she crosses the finish line, we were all there because we finished our short races first, and then we were there for you when you crossed the finish line. It was awesome. We're doing this.
To me, that is like a metaphor for what we do.
It is,
and
oh my God,
it's awesome.
It is. So I have talk about a metaphor it's a metaphor for what we do with work for change too. So Kendra, I was going through and cleaning out my photos the other day, and I took the pictures of you crossing the finish line, but I used that iPhone setting where it takes like 1,000 stills.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have, I mean, easily 200 pictures of you like chariots of fire rolling across the finish line still in my camera. I should send them to you. But yeah.
And then we didn't expect Brandy to like win the race in her age category. I mean, of course, Brandy, right?
I did.
It's all that running in airports that Brandy does. That keeps her.
Oh, I have some good travel stories from my Costa Rica vacation. I'll catch y'all up on. But I just wanted to pick back up on something Chris said, because this is what I love, and like where I'm like so excited about where this is going, because it's like, Gretchen, you sort of asked about like the personal and professional and how our training as sociologists enabled that. But it's also like this creative piece, right? Which I think is such a strength of yours, Chris. And it's like, even the way that you describe like the change process and telling the story, that's a part of the coaching, right? Is helping people understand that this is going to be a process.
Yes.
And that you don't get to your goals like instantly, right? Because we live in a time now where this is top of mind of everybody, and they want it done, right? You want you want to fix it, you want everybody to be happy, but it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of effort and energy, and it's a process. So even if you're describing this very descriptive artistic narrative thing that feels, artistic, because it is, but it's a part of the method, it's a part of the content. It's like, and attaching yourself to the foundational morals of what it means to really promote equity in a real way. It's just like, when I was listening to you, I'm like, yes, like that, those are the things that we talked about, right? Like on our weekends, like, it's not just the business model, or like you said, having someone check a box. It's really like utilizing everything that we have learned and what we feel passionate about and what we have skills in to make a change.
Yeah. Well, and part of making organizational change that's sustainable is documenting it, showing what you did, like showing a record of your investment. It's like having an executive report, except now you have this, video that you can share with people and use as an educational tool to onboard other people. So yeah, and now I can't even imagine like not offering it. I'd be like, it fits in so seamlessly with our process that it just seems like, such an important part of that work. Yeah. Thanks, Brandy.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, you want to say something, Jocelyn?
My dog was barking.
That was Lewis. Lewis wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean,
Brandy.
This is Kendra.
Chris always gives me credit for the business of it, but when it comes to slowing our clients down and saying like, this is a process, these are the frameworks, these are the tools, that is Chris Maycomber all day. And that's why it works so well. So just in, what you all reminded me of, and what I'm also inspired by the women helping women. So I'm glad, I forgot which one of you, I think Gretchen asked that question. So Work for Change actually has a new mentorship program that is aligned with women helping women. And so one thing that I'm doing, I have the starting your own business workshop. It is awesome. We're in part 2 this weekend. So we're going to offer that again in a couple of months. But in the meantime, I'm also starting a mentorship program to help women who have started their business or thinking about starting a business with all the things in the middle. So you may start your business, but do you know about tax preparation? Do you know about networking? Do you know about how to plan for the next year, right? All of those things that, they kind of don't teach you in the starting your own business once you have your engine going. So it is a 6-month program, and I'll offer more details about it on the website. But in the meantime, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us in our happy hour call tonight. Thank you, Jocelyn, Sarah, Brandy, Gretchen, and always Chris. So thank you again. Always remember that we are on all social media channels. We have a link tree that's below, so you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the things. Please like, subscribe, and share so that we can work to make the world of work better. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.